The emergency pod tumbled through space, its stabilizers failing as Helena Reyes fought with unresponsive controls. Through the viewport, Proxima Centauri colony, humanity's proudest achievement beyond Sol, disintegrated in brilliant flashes of violet and crimson energy. "Daddy!" A child's scream crackled through her comm, the signal distorting as atmospheric shields collapsed. "Maria! Maria!" Helena slammed her fist against the console, but the transmission dissolved into static. The last thing she saw before the emergency thrusters engaged was a crystalline, sealer dreadnought firing directly through the colony's central dome, directly through the school where her husband taught and her twin daughters attended. 6 months later, Captain Reyes stood at rigid attention before the UN Space Command Council, her decorated uniform hanging slightly loose on her frame. The Proxima Centauri massacre claimed 32,876 human lives. Admiral Zhang stated, his holographic presence looming over the semicircular chamber. This morning, both the Exceler Dominion and Mavari Collective rejected our formal protests. Their exact words, sir? Helena asked, her voice betraying no emotion. Ambassador Chen sighed. The Exceler representative called it regrettable collateral damage in a conflict beyond human comprehension. The Mavari suggested we should be grateful they don't consider our world strategic targets, yet. And our response? Zhang exchanged glances with the other council members. That's why you're here, Captain. Transport leaves in 20 minutes. Pack nothing. Tell no one. The lunar facility was buried 3 kilometers beneath the regolith of the Sea of Tranquility. After passing through 7 security checkpoints, Helena found herself standing before an observation window overlooking a massive underground hangar. "My God," she whispered. "Not quite," Zhang said, stepping beside her, but close to what the ancient Greeks might have imagined. Below them floated what appeared to be an asteroid, except for the massive propulsion arrays extending from its southern hemisphere and the weaponry bristling across its cratered surface. Workers swarmed around it like ants, installing components and running diagnostic cables. "We call it the Destroyer," Zhang continued. "Construction began in secret 15 years ago. 93 engineers died developing its systems, reverse engineering technology salvaged from 17 different battlefields. It violates every treaty we've signed with both major powers." "Does it work?" Helena asked. "In theory. It's never been tested at full capacity." "And why am I here?" Zhang handed her a tablet. "Your psychological profile. After Proxima, most expected you to resign your commission or request a planet-side assignment. Instead, your combat effectiveness increased by 41%. Your tactical innovations in the Jupiter skirmish saved 17 ships. I didn't do it for commendations. No, you did it for this." Zhang tapped a command, and the tablet displayed surveillance footage. The image showed crystalline, Sealar troops harvesting human survivors from damaged escape pods, hauling semi-conscious bodies into containment fields. This was taken 3 days after the Proxima attack. Our intelligence suggests the survivors are being used for biological experimentation. Helena's fingers tightened around the tablet until her knuckles went white. "I need a captain who understands what we're facing," Zhang said quietly. "Someone who won't hesitate. Someone with nothing left to lose." "You're wrong," Helena replied, her eyes never leaving the footage. "I have everything left to lose. Every human life they haven't taken yet." She handed back the tablet. "When do we depart?" "The destroyer isn't ready. We need another month tow." A klaxon interrupted him. A junior officer burst through the door, face pale. "Admiral, long-range sensors have detected a Mavari battle group. 67 vessels on direct course for Earth. Estimated arrival 12 days. Zhang turned to Helena. "Congratulations, Captain Reyes. It appears your departure time just changed to immediately. Weapons hot in 15 seconds, Lieutenant Kagoa reported, her fingers flying across the tactical interface. The destroyer hung in the darkness of Mars' shadow, its asteroid camouflage indistinguishable from the surrounding debris field. Helena studied the holographic display. 63 Mavari vessels approached in perfect formation, gaseous entities encased in techno-organic hulls that pulsed with bioluminescent energy. "Remember your training," she said to her crew of hastily assembled specialists. Most had never served together, pulled from research divisions and experimental combat units. "This ship may be untested, but you are not." "Captain," interrupted Chief Engineer Okafor over the comm, "I must formally register that the primary weapons array hasn't completed integration testing. The power coupling cold." "Noted, Chief. Target the lead vessel. Minimal charge for our first volley." The destroyer's hull vibrated as energy coursed through its systems. The asteroid's natural surface split apart, revealing gleaming weapon ports. "Mavari ships have not altered course. They don't see us," Tactical Officer Ramirez reported with a grin. Helena felt no satisfaction. Fire. A lance of blue-white energy erupted from the destroyer's main array, streaking across space toward the Mavari flagship. The bridge crew held their breath. The beam struck the alien vessel's shields and dissipated into shimmering particles. "Impossible," Ramirez shouted. "They shouldn't have defense against this frequency." The Mavari fleet broke formation instantly, 12 ships accelerating toward their position. "They've adapted," Helena realized. "Evasive pattern delta. Prepare secondary weapons." Too late. A barrage of plasma torpedoes impacted the destroyer's port section. The bridge lurched sideways as emergency containment fields activated. Ramirez's console exploded, throwing him backward in a shower of sparks. He didn't get up. Direct hit to decks 4 through 7. Someone shouted over alarms. "Weapons control compromised." Helena punched the emergency comm. "All hands, brace for jump. Engineering, emergency thrust now." The destroyer's massive engines fired, propelling the vessel away from Mars on a trajectory that made no tactical sense, directly toward Saturn's rings. Radiation leaking into crew quarters, Medical Officer Chandra reported grimly. 32 casualties, 6 dead. Hours later, the crippled destroyer drifted among Saturn's icy fragments, emergency systems operating at minimal capacity to avoid detection. The command staff gathered in what remained of the tactical center, faces illuminated by emergency lighting. "We have maybe 6 hours before they track us here," said Commander Chen, his uniform stained with hydraulic fluid. "The weapons array overloaded. We have no primary offensive capability." Helena watched her officers' faces, exhaustion, fear, and something worse. Doubt. "Captain," Chen continued, lowering his voice, "some of the crew are questioning everything. This ship, the mission, our chances." Lieutenant Kagawa, who had been silently studying data files in the corner, suddenly looked up. "I have an idea. It's insane, but..." "At this point, Lieutenant, insane is acceptable," Helena replied. Kagawa hesitated. "The alien tech powering our weapons system, it wasn't designed for machine interface. The sealer prototype was meant to be controlled directly through neural connection. You're suggesting we wire someone's brain into the ship?" Chen asked incredulously. "Not just anyone," Kagawa continued. "The neural patterns would need to be compatible. I've analyzed the crew's medical scans, and there are 12 potential matches." She paused. "You're one of them, Captain." "The interface was deemed too dangerous," Okafor protested. "It could burn out neural pathways, cause permanent brain damage, or worse." Helena removed her jacket, exposing radiation burns already blistering along her arms. "Prepare the interface. I'll go first." "Captain," Chen began. "We're out of options, Commander." 20 minutes later, Helena lay on a medical table, neural filaments snaking from a makeshift interface into contact points on her temples and spine. "This will hurt," Kagawa warned, positioning the final connector at the base of Helena's skull. "Good," Helena replied, her eyes fixed on the ceiling. As the connection activated, liquid fire surged through her nervous system. She arched up from the table, a scream tearing from her throat. And then she was everywhere at once. She was the ship. She could feel every system, every circuit, every weapon. The ship's damaged sensors became extensions of her own senses, reaching out into the void. "I can see them," she whispered, though her body remained on the table. 7 Mavari hunters, approaching from Sector 4. When the alien vessels discovered them, they expected to find a crippled Earth ship. Instead, they encountered something unprecedented. The destroyer moved with impossible precision, its remaining weapons firing in complex patterns that no targeting computer could have calculated. As Helena's consciousness guided the ship, her physical body convulsed, blood streaming from her nose and eyes. But in that moment of perfect union between human and machine, the 7 Mavari hunters never stood a chance. Afterward, as medical staff worked frantically to stabilize her, the bridge crew watched in stunned silence. Their captain had become something new, human, and weapon merged into one terrible instrument of vengeance. Neural interface calibration complete, Lieutenant Kagawa announced, removing the diagnostic equipment from Commander Chen's temples. That's 12 officers successfully integrated with the system. Helena observed from the doorway of the converted medical bay, now renamed the Neural Command Center. 3 weeks after their disastrous first engagement, the destroyer had undergone a metamorphosis. What Earth Command couldn't accomplish with years of engineering, necessity had achieved in days. "How does it feel?" she asked Chen as he sat up, blinking away the disorientation. "Like having extra limbs, extra senses." He flexed his fingers, still adjusting to the neural feedback, but nothing compared to what you experienced. Helena's connection had been different, deeper, more complete. Medical scans showed her neural architecture had permanently altered, quantum filaments now embedded throughout her cerebral cortex. The ship recognized her instantly whenever she came aboard, systems humming to life in her presence. "Captain," Chief Engineer Okafor called from the main comm. "You're needed on the bridge." Admiral Zhang's hologram awaited her, his expression grim. "The Xelar have seized 3 mining outposts in the Kuiper Belt. Tactical assessment suggests they're establishing a forward base for strikes against Neptune's colonies. We're still at 70% capacity," Helena responded. "Give us one more weekend." "You don't have a week. You have orders. Destroy the Xelar base. No survivors." Commander Chen stepped forward. "Sir, with respect, that's deep in contested territory. If we're detected, then don't be detected, Commander." Zhang's hologram flickered. "This isn't a discussion." Earth Command out. A tense silence filled the bridge before Helena turned to her officers. "Plot a course. Prepare for stealth approach." 4 hours into mission planning, an emergency transmission cut through the ship's communications. A distress call, encrypted with civilian emergency protocols. Helena recognized the source coordinates immediately. "Omega Station," she breathed. The tactical display showed the massive trading hub, home to 17 species including 6,000 human refugees, surrounded by Mavari attack vessels. Heavily armed, Tactical Officer Patel noted, "War Leader Sissik's elite squadron. They're executing a full orbital blockade. Why target a neutral trading post?" Chen asked. "Because it houses refugees from Proxima," Helena answered, her eyes never leaving the display. "Survivors who witnessed what the Mavari did." Chen lowered his voice. "Captain, our orders are clear. We can't divert from. Prepare for jump to Omega coordinates." "Captain, they're executing survivors, Commander." Her voice left no room for argument. "Tactical, prepare all functioning neural officers for simultaneous interface." What followed would later be described in 12 different alien languages, none fully capturing what happened. When the destroyer emerged from jump space, it didn't behave like one vessel, but like a dozen perfectly coordinated ships. Each neural-linked officer controlled different weapon systems independently yet in perfect harmony. In the center of the Neural Command Center, Captain Rice floated in a specially designed suspension chamber, her body convulsing as her consciousness expanded across the entire ship. Neural monitors showed her experiencing multiple simultaneous seizures as her enhanced nervous system processed tactical data from 12 different perspectives at once. Impossible, war leader Sizik transmitted to his fleet as his elite squadrons dissolved into debris around him. The Maveri commander, undefeated in 87 prior engagements, watched in disbelief as the human vessel executed maneuvers that defied conventional physics. Security footage from Omega Station would later show the destroyer splitting its fire across 19 targets simultaneously, each shot precisely calibrated to disable engines while leaving life support intact. Civilian casualties, 0. Concealed among the station's maintenance drones, observation units from the reclusive Galactic Council recorded everything. Their analysis noted one factor above all others. The human vessel demonstrated tactical schizophrenia that followed no predictable pattern. Traditional combat algorithms rely on anticipating logical responses, noted Senior Arbiter Talvex in the classified report. This vessel employs multiple contradictory strategies simultaneously, some brilliantly calculated, others seemingly random or emotionally driven. The Arbiter's final assessment was grave. The human neural capacity for both logical and emotional decision-making, when weaponized, represents a paradigm shift in warfare. They must be contained before they perfect this technology. Unknown to the observers, Helena had already collapsed in the neural chamber, blood streaming from her eyes as medical staff fought to disconnect her from the system. The ship, strangely, seemed reluctant to let her go. The destroyer docked at the Council's sanctuary station, its battle-scarred hull standing out among the elegant vessels of the diplomatic enclave. Helena exited the airlock flanked by Commander Chen and Lieutenant Kagawa, whose expertise with the neural interface had made her indispensable. Remarkable, Helena whispered, taking in the station's impossible architecture. Corridors curved in ways that defied Euclidean geometry, sections of the structure existing partially in altered spacetime. Delegates from dozens of species moved through translucent passages that seemed to fold into themselves. The Arbiters built this millennia ago, explained their guide, a slender humanoid with iridescent skin. It exists simultaneously in 17-dimensional planes, making it untraceable by conventional sensors. Helena felt a familiar prickling at her neural implants. Even separated from the destroyer, something here resonated with her enhanced nervous system. The diplomatic chamber was a vast amphitheater of crystalline platforms orbiting a central podium. Earth's ambassador, Dr. Narayan, waited for them with a tight expression. "Captain, this is unexpected," he whispered. "We anticipated sanctions for your intervention at Omega Station. Not this." "This?" Helena asked. Before he could answer, the chamber's ambient light shifted, drawing attention to approaching delegates. 11 different species, none human, glided toward their platform. The foremost figure, a diminutive amphibian with translucent skin revealing pulsing organs beneath, extended 4 webbed hands in a formal greeting. Its translator emitted a melodic chime before converting to human speech. "I am Speaker Ulacti of the Uveri Federation," it said, touching Helena's scared hand. "For centuries, we have been casualties of a war not our own. Refugees when our worlds became battlegrounds, slaves when our resources proved valuable. Today, we formally petition for the protection of the vessel called Phantom and her pack hunters." Helena glanced at Dr. Narayan, who appeared equally surprised. "Phantom. Your ship's designation among the stars," the Uveri explained. "The one that appears without warning, strikes with impossible precision, then vanishes." Before Helena could respond, the chamber darkened, towering crystalline beings, easily 12 feet tall with faceted surfaces that reflected light in hypnotic patterns, materialized on the central podium. The Arbiters. Captain Helena Reyes, their elder addressed her, voice resonating directly in her mind rather than through translators. "Your species intrigues us." Images flooded Helena's consciousness. Earth's first radio transmissions, early space exploration, conflicts, and alliances throughout human history. Unlike the warring powers who evolved from hive mind structures seeking uniformity, the Elder continued, humans developed as pack predators capable of both fierce competition and selfless cooperation. You fight among yourselves, yet unite against external threats. You create art alongside weapons. You experience empathy even for species unlike your own. The chamber shifted, platforms realigning as the Elder gestured toward the gathered delegates. These species seek your protection because they recognize what we have observed: humanity's unique potential as mediators. Later, in a private conference room, Earth's ambassador paced nervously. They want us to serve as peacekeepers in disputed sectors, he explained, with the destroyer as flagship for a coalition force. This is unprecedented, Captain. Helena studied the proposed treaty terms. Both major powers will oppose this. Violently, Dr. Narayan agreed. That Sealer's Supreme Command has already indicated they would consider this an act of war. The Mavari have suggested they might target Earth directly if we accept. I can offer 2 conditions, Helena said after a moment's consideration. First, Earth receives access to advanced technologies, medical, defensive, propulsion. Second, humanity gains a permanent council seat. That night, as diplomats celebrated the provisional agreement, Helena received an encrypted transmission from Lieutenant Patel aboard the destroyer. Intelligence had intercepted communications between the Xalar and Mavari high commands. Both were preparing planet-killer weapons aimed at Earth. While maintaining a diplomatic smile through a formal reception, Helena transmitted encoded coordinates of both species' homeworlds to Earth's military command, with specific instructions: arm their newest quantum phase missiles and position them for immediate launch. She caught Commander Chen's eye across the room and nodded slightly. He understood. Their shared neural link allowed a form of wordless communication even at this distance. The best deterrent, she had once told him, is one your enemy discovers just as they're about to attack. 3 hours later, both alien powers mysteriously withdrew their threats. No official explanation was given, but Helena noticed the arbiters watching her with something new in their crystalline eyes. Not just interest, but caution. They underestimated us, Dr. Narayan said, relief evident in his voice. Everyone does, Helena replied, her gaze drifting toward the viewport where the destroyer's silhouette floated against the starfield. And we need to ensure they continue making that mistake. Operation Sanctuary begins now, Helena announced from the destroyer's newly constructed central chamber. Where weapons storage had once dominated the asteroid's hollow core, a vast circular space now housed representatives from 7 alien species. Earth Command had objected strenuously. Admiral Zhang's final transmission had been explicit. This is a warship, not a flying embassy, Captain. But Helena had countered with irrefutable logic. The neural interface technology works better with diverse input. Each species perceives space-time differently, offering tactical advantages we can't achieve alone. Now she watched as the integration proceeded with surprising speed. On the engineering decks, methane-rich chambers housed the 6 armed Vorcha, their rapid metabolisms allowing them to complete repairs in 1/5 the time of human technicians. The observatory dome, reconfigured with specialized perceptual interfaces, enabled the insectoid Krev to scan spatial anomalies with their compound eyes, detecting quantum fluctuations light-years distant. Most dramatically, the previously unused lower decks had been flooded for the aquatic Nair, whose understanding of dimensional physics had already improved shield efficiency by an astonishing 340%. You should see this, Captain, Lieutenant Kagawa called from the neural lab. The neurologist's eyes had a feverish excitement as she displayed her findings. The TZ engineers have a crystalline neural structure that resonates at frequencies complementary to our alpha brain waves. When we link simultaneously to the ship's systems, the harmonic overlay creates weapons modulation patterns I never imagined possible. Not everyone welcomed the changes. Security Chief Rodriguez had objected formally. leading a faction of crew members who whispered that aliens couldn't be trusted with Earth's most advanced technology. They've been fighting each other for millennia, he argued during a senior staff meeting. What happens when they turn these innovations against us? The debate was cut short by a priority alert. Haven, the Alliance's first joint outpost, was under attack. A Xeeler battle group had emerged from jump space without warning, expecting to find only the destroyer defending the fledgling colony. Battle stations, Helena ordered, sliding into the neural interface chamber. As the connection engaged, she felt the ship respond. But something was different. New presences touched her consciousness, alien minds now integrated into the destroyer's systems. "Welcome, Captain," came the telepathic greeting from Kleth, the Krev sensor specialist, her compound mind perceiving threat vectors Helena could barely comprehend. What the Xeeler commanders anticipated was a single Earth vessel, powerful but ultimately vulnerable. What they encountered instead was a perfectly coordinated fleet of 47 smaller craft, each incorporating technologies from multiple species, each commanded by neural-linked teams who thought and fought as one unified consciousness. The Xeeler flagship Undefeatable, named after 2 centuries without defeat, approached in standard attack formation. Its commander, Grand Marshal Vexarn, had personally overseen the destruction of 17 alien civilizations. Primitive hybrid vessels, he sneered to his bridge crew. They dishonor themselves by such mixing. His confidence lasted exactly 178 seconds. The Alliance fleet moved with impossible synchronization. While Vorka-modified attack craft targeted shield frequencies, Nair-designed penetration drones exploited dimensional weaknesses in the Xeeler hulls. Human fighters executed feints so precisely timed that they drew Xeeler fire into predetermined vectors, where Tezet crystal arrays absorbed and redirected the energy back at its source. At the battle center, the destroyer executed maneuvers that defied conventional physics, its neural-linked crew functioning as a single organism with multiple specialized parts. In the neural chamber, Helena's consciousness expanded beyond human limitations, perceiving tactical opportunities through alien senses. The Undefeatable's primary weapon systems failed at 97 seconds. Its engines were disabled at 142 seconds. At 178 seconds, Grand Marshal Vexarn ordered his first and only retreat in 2 centuries of warfare. His vessel never completed the command sequence. From her neural interface, Helena directed precision strikes that disabled but did not destroy the Xeeler flagship. "Take it intact," she ordered through the shared consciousness. When Alliance forces boarded the supposedly impenetrable vessel, they discovered technology that confirmed their worst fears. The Xeeler were developing biomimicry capabilities to infiltrate other species. The true watershed moment, however, came in the aftermath. As Helena disconnected from the neural interface, exhaustion threatening to collapse her, she encountered a wounded Vorka engineer being helped to medical. Without thinking, she reached out, embracing the alien whose methane-based biochemistry required him to wear an atmospheric suit. The awkward gesture, human arms wrapped around an environment suit containing a 6-limbed methane breather, was captured by the ship's security cameras. Within days, the image had been transmitted across disputed sectors, becoming the unofficial emblem of the Alliance. Across 100 worlds, subjugated species observed the victory with dawning hope. On planets long dominated by either Xeeler or Mevari forces, resistance movements activated with a single message repeating across secure channels. "We stand with the Phantom. Captain, we need to discuss the Tezet delegation's request for expanded access to the neural interface protocols," Commander Chen said as he entered Helena's quarters. "Their crystalline resonance patterns show promising." The words died in his throat as Helena's combat blade sliced across it in a single fluid motion. Blood sprayed across the room's sparse furnishings as Chen collapsed, eyes wide with shock. The door slid open. Lieutenant Kagawa and 2 security officers rushed in, weapons drawn. They froze at the sight of their captain, standing over the body of her second-in-command, calmly wiping her blade on her uniform sleeve. "That's not Chen," Helena said, her voice eerily calm. "Restrain it." "Captain," Kagawa began. "Scan it. Now." The medical team arrived within minutes. Dr. Chandra's hands trembled as she ran the deep tissue scanner over the body. "My God," she whispered, showing the results to Kagawa. "The exterior tissue is human. But underneath." The revelation sent shockwaves through the Alliance. Beneath the perfect human exterior lay an unknown entity, a Maveri operative using revolutionary biomimicry technology. Further scans revealed something more horrifying. Neural pattern analysis confirmed that the real Commander Chen had been dead for weeks, his memories and mannerisms perfectly replicated down to his most personal habits. Fear spread faster than any contagion. How many others had been replaced? The Krev sealed off their observation dome, refusing to share sensor data. The Vorcha barricaded engineering sections. 3 human officers committed suicide rather than face testing when their behavior was questioned. Accusations flew across species lines. Long-standing prejudices resurfaced. The carefully constructed alliance began fracturing under the weight of paranoia. "We've detected unusual communication bursts from the TZ quarters," Security Chief Rodriguez reported, his expression vindicated. "I've always said we can't trust." "Enough," Helena interrupted. She stood from her desk, decision made. All hands meeting. Central chamber. 1 hour. The massive chamber at the destroyer's core had never held the entire crew simultaneously. 5,000 beings, human and alien alike, crowded the space, segregating themselves by species, suspicion evident in every interaction. Helena took the central platform. For a moment, she simply looked out at them, her neural implants pulsing visibly beneath the skin of her temples. "We're fighting the wrong enemy," she announced, her voice echoing in the sudden silence. "Fear will destroy us faster than any weapon." She activated a holographic display, showing the dissection of the Chen mimic. "Yes, our enemies have infiltrated us. Yes, they look like us, sound like us, think they are us. But there is one thing they cannot replicate." The display shifted to brain scans. Authentic relationship, genuine connection. The subtle rhythms of beings who truly know one another. Her solution was unprecedented. Small, mixed-species squads, 3 to 5 individuals, would live and work together in intimate proximity. Eating, sleeping, training as units, close enough to notice the slightest behavioral anomalies in each other. "We will trust, but verify," she declared. "Each of you will become an expert in your squadmates, their habits, preferences, personal histories. No technology can replicate the intuition of beings who truly know each other." Initial resistance was fierce. Rodriguez publicly objected. Several Krev representatives chittered their disapproval. A TZ elder shattered in protest, their species' ultimate expression of disagreement. Yet within days, necessity overcame prejudice. The approach, natural to humans, but revolutionary to other species, began showing results. 17 infiltrators were discovered in the first week, each exposed not by technology, but by squadmates noticing subtle inconsistencies. The captured Sealer commander watched from his containment cell as the Alliance transformed. Where once separation had been the norm, now the ship teamed with unlikely groupings. A human engineer and Vorcha technician worked side by side in the reactor core, finishing each other's sentences. A Krev navigator shared its perceptual link with a TZ weapons specialist, their neural patterns synchronizing through shared interface nodes. "This abomination of mixing cannot stand," the Taylor hissed when Helena visited his cell. "You corrupt the natural order." Helena studied him, seeing not a monster but another tool in the conflict. "That's exactly why we'll win," she replied. "You built societies based on uniformity. We're building one based on difference." She leaned closer to the containment field. "And do you know the most fascinating discovery we've made? When truly diverse minds link through the neural interface, they create patterns your infiltrators cannot possibly replicate. As she turned to leave, the sailor called after her. The others will never accept this. The arbiters will not permit such violation of the natural order. Helena paused at the door, a slight smile touching her lips. I'm counting on it. Something doesn't align, Helena murmured, studying the holographic display of interrogation transcripts. The captured Mavari infiltrator, the one who had nearly succeeded in assassinating her while disguised as a junior communications officer, showed peculiar knowledge gaps. He describes Mavari strategy meetings he couldn't possibly have attended, she pointed out to Lieutenant Kagawa. And here, he references arbiter diplomatic protocols no Mavari should know. Kagawa frowned. Could be disinformation. They know we'd interrogate any captured operatives. Or there's something we're missing. Helena's neural implants pulsed as she focused. The ship's systems responded unconsciously, pulling related intelligence files into the display. We need deeper access to his actual memories, not just what he's programmed to tell us. A deep neural scan could kill him, Kagawa warned. And it would definitely constitute torture under Alliance protocols. What about a consensual link? My neural architecture connecting to his. Kagawa's eyes widened. That's beyond dangerous, Captain. The biomimicry technology could infect your implants. You could lose yourself. Or worse, they could gain access to the destroyer through you. Then you'll have to monitor and sever the connection at the first sign of trouble. The procedure was conducted under maximum security. Helena lay on a medical bed adjacent to the restrained infiltrator, their neural patterns displayed in competing holographic fields above them. Remember, Kagawa cautioned, don't push too deep. Surface memories only. I'm setting a 5-minute limit. As the connection engaged, Helena felt the now familiar sensation of her consciousness expanding, but this time into alien territory. Images flashed. Mavari training facilities, infiltration assignments, biomimicry conversion procedures. Then suddenly, something unexpected. An arbiter crystal chamber, Mavari and sailor representatives standing together before the towering crystalline beings. The ancient arrangement continues, the arbiter elder was saying, as it has for 12,000 cycles. You will maintain the conflict at precisely calculated intervals. You will engage at these coordinates, with these weapon configurations. Helena pushed deeper despite Kagawa's warnings. 12,000 cycles of orchestrated war. Billions of deaths, countless civilizations caught in the crossfire, all precisely engineered by the supposedly neutral arbiters. The energy released during large-scale space battles, the memory continued, feeds our conversion matrices. Without this harvest, our species cannot sustain immortality. Helena gasped as understanding crashed through her. Every peace negotiation over thousands of years, sabotage. Every weapon innovation, mysteriously countered by the opposition. The destroyer itself, unwittingly serving these ancient manipulators by generating unprecedented combat energy. Disconnect her now, Dr. Chandra shouted as Helena's vital signs spiked dangerously. When she regained consciousness hours later, her senior staff had gathered in the medical bay. She shared what she'd discovered, watching horror spread across human and alien faces alike. Direct confrontation is suicide, Security Chief Rodriguez argued when Helena proposed exposing the truth. The Arbiter's technology is millennia beyond ours. Their enforcers are embedded throughout Galactic government. That night, Helena dreamed of her daughters asking why they had died. Was it just to feed ancient parasites? She woke with absolute clarity. We'll fight with humanity's true superpower, she told her unified command staff the next morning. Human and alien alike gathered around the strategy table. Information. The plan took shape rapidly. Using Alliance communication networks and the destroyer's quantum transmitters, they would simultaneously broadcast evidence of the Arbiter's betrayal to all species, along with a proposal for a true peace conference with complete transparency. The Arbiters will retaliate immediately, warned Killeth, the Krev sensor specialist. They have hidden fleets our sensors cannot detect. They'll come for the destroyer first, Helena acknowledged. They need to silence us before the truth spreads. Then we're sacrificing ourselves? Asked a Vorka engineer. No, we're changing the game. Helena activated the holographic display showing their current position, a seemingly empty sector that actually served as a convergence point for 17 rarely used jump routes. When they come for us, they won't find just the Alliance waiting. Lieutenant Tizzle, a young Krev who had lost her entire brood nest in the manufactured war, worked her mandibles nervously. You believe that Sealer and Mavari forces will aid us, they who have hunted us across the stars. They won't be fighting for us, Helena explained. They'll be fighting for themselves, for the trillions they've lost to a lie, for the futures that were stolen from them. When the transmission was sent, it traveled along channels designed by the combined genius of 7 species. Quantum encrypted yet universally accessible, it reached every corner of known space simultaneously. It contained the memories Helena had extracted, additional evidence from 1,000 battles, and mathematical proof that the energy harvested from the war corresponded exactly to Arbiter lifespans. The Arbiter's response was swift and brutal. Their enforcement fleet, hidden for centuries, emerged from dimensional pockets to converge on the destroyer's position. But when they arrived, they found not just the Alliance fleet waiting, but vessels from both Sealer and Mavari forces, as well, temporary allies united by their shared sense of betrayal. In the destroyer's command center, Helena stood beside Lieutenant Tizzle, watching the approaching armada on the tactical display. Is this what humans call hope? The insectoid asked, her compound eyes reflecting the countless ships preparing for battle. No, Helena answered, activating the neural interface one more time. This is what we call justice. 72 hours of unrelenting battle transformed the empty sector into a graveyard of ships. The Arbiter's enforcement fleet, hidden for millennia, deployed weapons that bent reality itself. Space folded around their crystalline vessels, allowing them to appear and vanish at will. Their energy beams phased through conventional shields as if they didn't exist. Half the Alliance fleet was gone in the first day. On the destroyer's bridge, emergency lighting cast harsh shadows as Helena directed the battle through her neural link, blood seeping from her implants as the strain threatened to overwhelm her enhanced nervous system. 3 more Arbiter dreadnoughts emerging from dimensional shift, reported Kaleth, the Krev sensor specialist. Our remaining squadrons cannot intercept. A violent explosion rocked the ship. When the smoke cleared, Helena found herself on the deck, left arm crushed beneath a fallen support beam. Through the neural link, she felt the ship's pain as her own. Arbiters targeting our command nexus, Rodriguez called out, pulling her free. Neural interface chamber damage. We've lost 13 linked officers. Helena struggled to stand, ignoring the white-hot agony where her arm had been. Reroute neural controls through my primary implant. Captain, your system can't handle. Do it. As technicians worked frantically to reconfigure the interface, a transmission cut through the chaos. The Sailor Prime Warmaster, once their most dedicated enemy, appeared on the main display. The Arbiter's command center has been located, he announced, his crystalline features unreadable. It exists in a dimensional pocket our weapons cannot penetrate. We've detected the same, Helena confirmed, her voice strained as medics applied emergency field dressings to her shattered arm. There is a way, the sailor continued. A resonance cascade, triggered from within their dimensional barrier, could collapse their entire network. But the delivery vessel would be destroyed. Helena finished. I will lead this assault, the Warmaster stated. Not a question or offer, but a declaration. Helena nodded once in acknowledgement. Within minutes, they watched as the massive Sealer flagship accelerated toward the dimensional anomaly housing the Arbiter Command Center, its engines reconfigured to detonate in a precisely calculated pattern. The dimensional breach tore open space itself, quantum fire consuming the Sealer vessel and the Arbiter stronghold in a silent, blinding flash. The battle's turning point came hours later, when a Mavari consciousness collective, a merged entity composed of thousands of individual minds, voluntarily dissolved its core structure to power the final assault, releasing energy that overloaded the remaining Arbiter vessel's dimensional drives. When the quantum dust settled, the ancient manipulators were gone. But victory had come at devastating cost. 3 months later, the first truly representative Galactic assembly convened aboard the repurposed Arbiter Sanctuary Station. The vast chamber hummed with the voices of representatives from 112 species, former enemies seated beside former victims. Admiral Helena Reyes, her uniform sleeve pinned where her left arm had once been, a patch covering her permanently damaged eye, took the central podium. The neural implants at her temple pulsed faintly, connecting her to thousands across the assembled species who now shared similar technology. Humanity did not fight to replace one tyrant with another, she began, her voice carrying across the chamber. We did not sacrifice so many to merely shift the balance of power. The holographic display behind her activated, showing the neural patterns of thousands of minds, human and alien, synchronized in complex harmonics of shared consciousness. What we propose is unprecedented, she continued. A governance structure that evolves rather than calcifies. A rotating council where power constantly shifts between species, preventing any single evolutionary perspective from dominating our shared future. She gestured to representatives of the Tseeler and Mivari, once bitter enemies, now tentative collaborators. Our differences nearly destroyed us. Now they will be our salvation. The proposal faced resistance. Some argued for punishment of those who had perpetuated the war. Others insisted their species deserved dominance after centuries of suffering. The debates lasted weeks, but eventually, the shared trauma of betrayal gave way to something new, a cautious willingness to try another approach. The UES destroyer, the vessel that had turned the tide of war, underwent its own transformation. Weapons bays became research laboratories where multi-species teams developed technologies to repair the damage of millennia of conflict. The Neural Interface Center, once used to coordinate attacks, now trained diplomats in cross-species understanding through shared consciousness. The battle scars remained deliberately unrepaired, a reminder of what had been overcome. In the observatory dome, a memorial listed every being, of all species, who had died in the final conflict. The last name was Commander Chen, the human whose identity had been stolen. Below the names, a simple inscription read, "They made space for something new." On the 10th anniversary of the Arbiter's defeat, representatives from 214 species gathered aboard the vessel formerly known as the Destroyer, now renamed Concordance. Admiral Reyes, her hair now streaked with gray, but her presence still commanding, watched as former enemies collaborated on projects that would have been unimaginable before. "Was it worth it?" asked her aide, a young human officer who had never known the war. Reyes touched the neural link scar at her temple, the connection that had nearly killed her but now joined her consciousness to thousands across the galaxy. With a thought, she activated the link. For one breath, she experienced the thoughts of countless beings, their fears, hopes, creations, loves, a tapestry of life no single mind could comprehend alone. She smiled as the connection faded. "That's humanity's true gift to the stars," she said, gesturing to the diverse gathering. "Not our weapons, not our tactics, but this, the understanding that our differences, even when they create conflict, ultimately lead to stronger solutions than any single species could devise alone." As she spoke, far beyond detection range, at the edge of known space, a faint crystalline signal pulsed. A single Arbiter seed ship, dormant for centuries, began to awaken. The war had ended, but evolution, the endless dance of adaptation and change, continued.